Call to order the March 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Bayport City Council. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks. Matt, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dahl.
Present.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
Here.
Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Just note that Councilmember Gilmore is absent tonight.
And also note that John will be leaving at 6:45, just for another engagement. So, all right, do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
I second.
All right. Wow, that went so fast. I'm just like, you guys are getting so
World
good at this. All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. The February Recycling Award recipient is Mona LaBelle, at 484 3rd Street South. She'll be awarded for recycling efforts with a grant from Washington County. And then we have a proclamation that no one printed for me. This is what happens when Sarah's not here, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, let's see. Where is it in here, guys? It's like so many pages. Is it after?
Third page.
Really? Did I go right by it?
Sorry.
I should have seen all the whereases. There it is. Okay. This is a proclamation for Slow-Mo Summer. This year we switched from Slow-Mo May to Slow-Mo Summer. Do we always read all of this when we do proclamations, or can I just?
Madam Mayor, you don't have to. I can give you a brief overview if that's easier.
I just want to make sure John's here.
Yeah, essentially what we're seeking is Slow-Mo Summer is kind of a takeoff on No-Mo May, right? What we're hoping is that, and some research was done, or at least paper research, that it's preferential actually to leave your grass a little longer the whole summer rather just than in the month of May. And by longer, we mean 6 inches, essentially. That's what we're hoping for. The proclamation in the past has been that we needed to deviate from the length of grass because anything over 6 inches is a violation, essentially. So this proclamation is more of an announcement rather than needing it to specifically deviate from city code. So yeah, if people are willing to leave their grass at 6 inches, it's good for the honeybees, good for the insects, pollinators, all of that. That'd be appreciated.
All right. Thank you. All right, so then we'll move on to the open forum. The open forum is a portion of the meeting to address the City Council on subjects that are not part of the agenda. The City Council may take action or reply at the time of the statement or may give direction to staff regarding investigation of comments expressed. Total of 15 minutes is allotted for public comment during the open forum. Anyone want to come and address the council now? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consider a resolution adopting items 1 through 9, February 3rd, 2025 City Council workshop and regular meeting minutes, and the February 3rd City Council and Planning Commission joint meeting minutes, the February payables and receipts, February building, plumbing, mechanical, and zoning permits report, the no waiver of statutory tort liability limits for city insurance coverage, joint powers agreement with the County Sheriff's Office to purchase fuel for the police department, an application for a short-term rental license from Rob Schmitz at 445 Lakeside Drive, and the appointment of Dean Chamberlain to the Planning Commission for a term to expire at the end of December in 2026. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the resolution approving the consent agenda as presented.
Thanks, Carl.
Second.
Thank you, John. Roll call vote, please, Matt.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hanson.
Aye. Passes. No public hearings, no unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business, which is to consider a final plat for Barker's Alps School Edition submitted by the Stillwater Area Public Schools Independent School District 834.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and those watching at home. If we could switch to the screen. There we go. As the mayor said, this is the final plat application for the new elementary school being requested by Independent School District 834. The council previously approved applications related to this development back in November, including the annexation, comprehensive plan, zoning map amendment, as well as a conditional use permit for the school itself, and variances related to impervious surface and grading within the site. This current application that comes forward is related specifically to the subdivision. It's the final plat of the property, which is the next step in the subdivision process after the preliminary plat. And it essentially dots the i's and crosses the t's on establishment of the lot and block for this property and dedication of right-of-way for 5th Avenue North, excuse me. There's also the development contract, which is the legal instrument drafted by the city attorney that ties all the approvals from November and this final plat together and gives the developer the ability to move forward with the project, provides for payment of city fees, and provides security for the public improvements included in the project. This property is the 10 acres located west of Barker's Alps Park, south side of 5th Avenue North. It's undeveloped and was annexed into the city of Bayport. Surrounding uses include undeveloped property to the west, as well as public uses including the fire department and correctional facility to the north. The final plat establishes the one lot for the school facility, dedication of right-of-way to Washington County for the county road. It also provides for construction of the utilities to and through the site that would ultimately serve land to the west of the property, dedication of easements over those public improvements within the site, including stormwater facilities and utilities, and then provides for payment of a park dedication fee in the amount of $85,000, which the city can use for improvements to public park systems. The development contract, again drafted by the city attorney, combines all the approvals into one, provides for the financial securities that are required to construct those public improvements, provides that the city engineer will oversee those public improvements as they're constructed and make sure they comply with city specifications. And then there's also 4 easement agreements included as part of the development contract to cover the ISD 834's use of the city park, the reciprocal off-street parking areas, the shared use of Barker's Alps Park, as well as the access to the school parking lot by the city on special occasions, the emergency vehicle access on the south side of the building, and then a stormwater easement and maintenance agreement covering protection of those stormwater areas within the property. The site plan has been finalized from the Planning Commission and City Council reviews to include the site plan, some modifications to the landscape plan. Essentially, the areas shown in green are those areas that are being disturbed as part of the project and then being restored in accordance with either prairie restoration, planting of trees. We're also clarifying that they aren't planning on installing any irrigation as part of the project, given the water-tolerant species that are being planted, so that will no longer be necessary. City engineers finalized the construction plans in coordination with the developer, and the watershed organization has also approved the stormwater management plans for the site. So city staff recommends approval of the applications based on the final plat being consistent with the subdivision ordinance as well as the preliminary plat approval. The development contract, again, consistent with the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, is drafted by the city attorney, including the easement agreements. The Planning Commission did review the final plat at their meeting on February 18th. They had no real comments and voted 4-0 to recommend approval. There were some comments during the open forum portion of the Planning Commission meeting concerning potential future uses or expansion of the school. Also construction of sidewalks going east of the school on 5th Avenue North, and some questions pertaining to the landscape plan. The landscape plan in full is available by contacting city staff. There is a grant application being submitted for the sidewalk to be constructed along the public street. And then obviously any expansion or change in use for the park or the school is not even being contemplated at this point. Obviously would require involvement and approval from the city council to happen. And then subsequently, if that were to move forward, would involve a planning process similar to what's been carried forward for the school itself. So city staff is recommending approval of the applications, again, subject to the 18 stipulations that are included in the city council resolution.
All right, thank you, Dan. I know I spent a lot of time looking through this very closely and then spent a little bit more time looking very closely with Matt this afternoon. So I got all of my questions answered, and then you did a great job of incorporating some of those into the description that you just gave. So I feel very comfortable with everything that I've seen. I don't know if anyone has any questions or needs clarification on.
Were we able to, was anybody present for the planning commission
I watched
I
it.
was
meeting
there.
and were we able to answer the concerns and questions
Yeah.
of the residents?
Yeah, it was mostly,
Adequately?
yeah, there was that fear of, well,
The park.
you know, if you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile kind of attitude. They were worried that the school is gonna wanna expand.
We didn't give them anything. They bought their own
Well,
property.
yeah. I'm just saying, they didn't
But-
say those words, I'm just saying that was
Just
sort
for
of
clarification
the
for
fear that it
everybody's-
seemed to be coming through. And then I remember there was just a comment about the prairie being up against the woods and how was that gonna work? So I'm sure if he has more questions, he can be filled in with the details on how that's gonna work. And then
Questions
it
on the
was
sidewalk.
access to it, yeah, along Fifth there. And so we talked about the safe roads.
Safe routes to school.
Safe routes.
Likely not an assessment? Is it, like, I think that was the concern. was an
Yes,
assessment.
yes. And who's gonna take care of the sidewalk? Are the residents responsible? And the answer was yes. That they have to shovel it, not like maintain it.
Yes.
But like shovel it, yeah.
And that's the city code requirement, is if you have sidewalk
Yeah.
adjacent to your property.
Right.
Some cities, when the sidewalk does access a school, will have the city crews handle that because of the need to get it cleared in time for kids to walk to school. But that's a decision for a later date.
Right. I don't think we do that with the sidewalks that kids use right now, right? To get to the school. So I don't know how that will work or not, but we'll have to figure that out. I was trying to think of what else I was gonna say, but
Yeah, I mean,
that
other
was-
than that, I maybe didn't go over it 2 times, but
yeah, well, yeah.
there's a lot here.
There is a lot here, and it's, I think back in the days when we had paper packets, it was easier to kind of tell what was what, but now you're just kind of scrolling through it going, okay, what part am I on now? It's a lot, but, yeah, and I had questions a little bit about like because we're very specific about some of the agreements, but there wasn't anything that said like the bus parking in the shared lot that's mostly on Barker's Alps land is also gonna have car marks on it so that after school hours, it could be used for cars as well. And then if you look at the actual, whatever number this plan is of the plat, it tells you that. You can see it marked, but it's just not written anywhere. So things like that I was just confused on. So, got all that clarified. So I guess, unless anyone has any other comments,
I don't.
and we have no one from,
I don't either.
Okay.
Yeah, from being at the meetings and just
yeah,
following
you
it, I
had to
feel like,
listen
yeah.
to it all
Yeah.
before already, yeah. Wow, okay. Then I guess we can, have a motion.
I will move to adopt a resolution approving a final plat for the development of a new elementary school at 1003 Fifth Avenue North, subject to findings of fact and the conditions of approval.
Thanks, John.
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Katie. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. Motion approved. Check, check. There you go. There we go. Okay, our TVs weren't working for a minute. Now, you're welcome to skedaddle if you want, District 834. Thanks for coming. Sorry that you
you.
came all the way here and we had no questions for you, but maybe that's good, right?
have a feeling.
Wait, I have one question. Is it going to be Bayport Elementary School like it says in the renderings before you leave? Because everyone's been asking me. Okay, good. Just want to make sure, because I've been saying yes based on the renderings, but, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, bye.
No, yeah.
Okay. Bye, Dan, thank you. Okay, consider an amendment to Chapter 58, Utilities of the Bayport City Code of Ordinance to adopt a stormwater utility and summary for publication, and we have a guest.
While she's getting ready, Mayor Hanson,
Okay.
I'll just do a short
Wonderful.
update, essentially. So at the November 13th, 2024 City Council meeting, City Council reached consensus, or special meeting actually, on the establishment of a stormwater utility. The determination was that approximately $6 per quarter for residential properties was what was considered. Essentially, we're creating the stormwater utility as a means to pay for different things related to the stormwater system, items such as education, monitoring requirements, compliance with local and state and federal requirements, and this utility provides a more equitable method than just using property taxes. The reason being that establishments such as the school, churches, the prison system aren't paying property taxes, and with what we've developed or with what SEH has developed, it spreads out the stormwater charges more evenly rather than having them specifically based on property taxes. So with all that said, I will pass it along to Lily, who is here to present.
Thank you for the introduction and good evening, everyone. I'm Lily Hawk. I'm a water resources engineer with SEH. So speaking about the stormwater utility program, the funds garnered for the program could be used for the administration of the program itself, but the main purpose is to help fund stormwater utility maintenance, as well as capital improvement projects that might include replacing storm sewer or constructing stormwater management BMPs to help reduce flooding or provide pollutant removal. A lot of these items are in line with a permit that is administered at the state level that the community also has to adhere to and provide maintenance for the stormwater utility. So the stormwater utility would be calculated two different ways. The first way is if you're a resident of a single family home or a dwelling of 1 to 3 units, so duplexes or small rentals, you would be charged a flat rate for each quarter. But if you are a property that is not a single family or smaller dwelling, you would be charged based on your land use and the area of your parcel compared to an average residential parcel. The land use categories have been established using both the county system and kind of different city divides based on what we've seen on what type of businesses are here. So the main categories we have are commercial, industrial, institutional, multiple family, municipal, parks and open spaces, and then vacant properties. Your institutional properties are going to be the ones that cover any of your community-based services or facilities. So churches, the prison, sorry, I don't know if there's a correctional facility, would be what I would call it. Elementary schools, other educational institutions would be included in the institutional category. And then multiple family would include any parcels that have more than 4 dwelling units. So that is the threshold between your single family base rate and your multiple family. Usually in those cases, you have a lot more impervious. You might have a small parking lot. So those parcels end up looking different than, say, your single family home would. So we take that base rate and then we create this what's called a residential equivalency factor. This is based off of that land use, and the land uses are divided by how much impervious they might have on them. So if you have more impervious, that means when it rains, there's more stormwater runoff. So then you have more burden on your system coming from these parcels. And also sometimes when you have more impervious, you also have more pollutants. So parcels that end up having more impervious have a higher residential equivalency factor to account for the fact that they are going to produce more runoff and pollutants. That residential equivalency factor is then applied to the rate and the area of the parcel to create a total charge per quarter per acre. And then again, just a reminder, those single-family homes are consistently at the base rate, no matter their size. They're generally less than an acre across the city. And so look, there isn't a large area discrepancy between single-family or smaller residential parcels. So in order to create a system where you can charge residents based on their land use, we created a database based off of these county categorizations. So when we're looking at this pie chart, it is based on the number of parcels in the city, so not necessarily based on area. And as you can see, most of the city is comprised by residential parcels, over 3/4 of the city. And then that is followed by vacant areas, as well as your industrial, commercial, and municipal properties. So majority of the income and revenue from the stormwater utility program would be coming from those single family or residential parcels. How this program would potentially evolve if we apply these rates per parcel is that the first year there would be a base rate applied with those residential equivalency factors, and then each year the city council could opt to increase the fee. I've shown on this slide a potential increase in fees based on a preliminary financial plan put together by the city when determining if this program would be feasible. So it shows an original base rate of $6 for 2025. That would then double in 2026. You would have a triplage from your original base rate in 2027, and then it would have a marginal increase going forward past 2027 at 3%.
Lily, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Just to be clear, none of this has been decided that we are going to be doing any of these increases.
Yes.
I, for one, am not excited about doing any of these increases. Like to see how it goes this for a while at this rate. Just so I'm just afraid if anyone sees this, they're going to think it's going to happen. So
yes, no, absolutely, and that's
Okay.
why there's a little note in the corner that says these are determined annually by city council.
Yeah.
So
I
if
don't
say
know
you
that they would
implement it one
interpret it.
year and
Okay.
it seems it's feasible the next year to continue that base rate, the city council does not have to increase the
Right.
rate. It is an annual decision, and that may or may not even follow closely to this. This
Right.
was just the original assumption in that financial plan.
it was in the financial plan, but just
Yes.
as a recommendation, we don't have to do that. So, all right, thank you. Just want to make it clear.
No, absolutely. So when also looking at the stormwater utility program setup, a question was, what are the surrounding communities' stormwater utility programs? How are those established? So we looked at the surrounding area, not just Washington County, but also cities that border Washington County that were of a similar population. Not all communities have stormwater utility programs, so if you have a community in mind that's not on this list, they may not have a program. There is quite a bit of range, as you can see, across communities. Something to consider here that's included in that right column is the residential equivalency factor. So when it says it is similar to Bayport's potential setup, that means that they are giving in very similar burden between, say, your industrial, commercial, institutional properties and residential properties, as we are suggesting in this presentation. If it is lower, that usually means that it's more even burden between residents and industrial, commercial properties. If it says it's higher, that usually means that commercial and industrial properties are taking on more of the burden of the overall stormwater utility program. Sometimes this can line up with the rates in the sense that you see Circle Pines and Matamedi, excuse me, that pronunciation may be incorrect.
Matamidi.
Matamidi, thank you. It's not raised in this area.
We could tell from that. No,
I know, as soon as left my mouth, I was like, very clearly I was
That's all
raised
right.
in Nebraska, for those curious. But those rates are generally higher, potentially because single-family homes are paying a smaller rate in comparison to the base rate necessarily, or more of the burden is on those other properties.
So wait, I'm confused because Matamidi says the quarterly base rate is $38. And then
Yes.
you're saying that
I should rephrase that. Residences may be paying $38, and then the commercial industrial properties are going to be paying much more comparatively.
even more.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So for
Than what
instance,
ours are.
yes,
Yeah,
for roughly
okay.
rough numbers here, at a base rate of $6, your commercial, institutional, industrial properties, institutional is a little less, we have commercial, industrial at the same level, are paying roughly $33. So
Okay.
Significant, that's per acre.
Per acre.
Per acre.
So significant difference there. I don't have their exact numbers on what they would be charging per acre, but using what they gave me for the residential equivalency factors, they're going to be much higher than that $33 compared to the $6 ratio.
Okay.
And also to note here, Taylor's Falls has an asterisk next to it because when I inquired about their program, they were let us know they're in the middle of redoing it or also changing their rates. So I included them because I think the REF comparison note can be helpful, but their quarterly base rate I would maybe take with a grain of salt as they are in the middle of determining if that is accurate for their community.
Okay.
But looking through this list, you can see $6 is roughly in a range that's similar or lower than most of the communities with a similar residential equivalency factor. If you wanted to scale the rate based on that financial plan, up to $18 in 3 years, you are exceeding the surrounding communities slightly. But I would also note with that, you don't know what their plans are to increase their rates. And everyone's in the same position where every year they have to decide whether or not they would like to increase their rates. So over time, your surrounding communities will also be changing and going through similar processes to determine if they want to overhaul their stormwater utility program. So in different considerations with the programs, you can establish whether or not vacant properties are exempt, if you want to charge certain properties, and if you want to establish a cost maximum. So looking at the vacant properties, we recommend that they are excluded from the program on the basis of a few different factors. The first one being, well, 8% might seem like a large amount of the land area. It is a relatively small portion of the land area of the city of Bayport to garner fees or to garner the stormwater utility fee from. And that only actually equates to 2% of your potential revenue from these properties. A lot of these properties end up being a sliver of a single-family residential parcel that is next to someone's main property that they may just not have incorporated yet. So there is also a question of whether or not including these properties would be an additional burden, both on single-family homeowners and residents, but also on the city to then kind of have to track down people who fall under that category and are now paying 2 fees, and or other individuals who don't live in the city of Bayport and who may be administering or taking care of their parcel from afar. And it was determined based on the small potential revenue from these properties and the potential burden and the fact that they're predominantly residential and you're most likely already getting a rate from the parcel owners, a vacancy exemption, is recommended. Which, moving on, would bring us to the other side of this is the cost maximum fee. One more note on the vacancy exemption. That would include municipal properties, non-occupied properties, or properties that aren't developed. So if there's a residential parcel that didn't have a home, that would be considered vacant. But say you have a commercial property that doesn't have a building on it, but is entirely paved, it's a parking lot, that would not be considered vacant because it has been developed for a specific use. The third aspect of that is cemeteries, parks, and open spaces, just because those also usually have the least amount of runoff and are good for intercepting stormwater. And also most of the parcel owners of those properties either ended up being the city in the case of the parks, or undeveloped state DNR properties that are likely not to be developed in the future. So moving on to the cost maximum side, we looked at a few different options for establishing a cost maximum here. So what you're seeing in these 2 charts on the right, and they're the same data in the charts, they're essentially the same, is the spread of your non-residential properties and what their potential fee would be at $6 for your base rate. So in that left graph, you see all these dots above the graph, and those are to represent your outlier properties who are paying substantially more fees or who would be paying substantially more fees than any of your other non-residential parcels. This is called the box and whisker plot, so that's the statistical method we use to identify these outliers. And then on the right, these outliers are removed, so you get a little zoomed in glance on kind of what your average non-residential parcel is looking at, with that orange line at the top representing your outlier threshold. So the big box in the middle is where majority of your non-residential parcels are falling in terms of the fees that they would owe through the stormwater utility program. So that 75% threshold and below, most of your non-residential parcels are in there. It is only, in this case, roughly 10 parcels that are actually even above that, far enough above that to be above your outlier threshold. So the cost maximum was established in the sense that we're applying this residential equivalency factor to create a more equitable burden between the non-residential parcels and the residential parcels, but it's not necessarily the perfect approximation in the sense that it can expand these rates for these extremely large parcels in a significant way that might represent an undue burden on the parcels. So we established an outlier at the outlier threshold, which is that orange line. We looked at different options for the outlier threshold looked at different options for the cost maximum, and one of those was also the 75th percentile, and it was determined that may have excluded too many parcels or included too many parcels and being limited by the cost maximum, so we wanted to raise that to the outlier.
So what you're saying is the non-residential properties will pay no more than $210 per
Yes,
quarter?
Per quarter.
Okay.
Yes, and this is also by parcel and not by taxpayer. So there are also a significant amount of
But wait, is it $210 per acre per quarter, or is it just $210 per quarter?
It is just $210 per quarter per parcel.
Okay.
So many of your commercial and industrial parcel owners own multiple parcels, so it's not necessarily that one taxpayer is limited to $210.
Gotcha.
They might have multiple parcels that are even under the outlier threshold and then several that are above it, and you aggregate them to one rate per that parcel owner. So this does apply not per acre, but just over the one parcel, it might impact multiple parcels for a tax owner.
Are the identified outliers, is that per parcel or is that per institution, organization, corporation?
That is per parcel. Okay. So I know for a fact that like 3 of these
Are
dots / parcels, yes, are owned by the same taxpayer.
Sure.
And there are a few others who I think the state of Minnesota itself, running the correctional facility, also owns several parcels that are above the threshold.
So it's fair to say if XYZ Corporation owns 6 properties that are in that outlier range, they would get 6 above that outlier threshold. They would get 6 $210
Quarterly.
Yes.
fees. Okay.
Quarterly.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Absolutely.
So the graph on the left the graph on the right is basically a stretched out version
Short,
of.
yeah.
And yep, it's just
Exactly.
zoomed
Just
in
to-
and taking off those
Great.
top points,
Okay.
mainly to show you
Took
that
me a while to figure that out. But
it's very few parcels that are impacted by this. There's 1,200 total in the city, and if we take out 900 of those are roughly residential. So of your 300 roughly non-residential parcels, 10 of those would fall into this category.
what did you call this graph again? Whisker something?
It's a box and whisker plot.
I need to Google that after. This is really interesting. I learned something tonight.
Oh, if you do salary surveys, you see them all the time.
Goodness.
Yes, it's been a while until I look back at statistics and said, here's how to determine an outlier.
Okay.
So we looked at several potential revenue scenarios, taking into both of these things into account. At first, we had been talking with the city administrator and identified that the vacancies, due to the small amount of revenue that they would generate, could probably be exempted from the start. And from there, we looked at several different base rates, and then also on top of that, those 2 cost maximum scenarios. So the base rates we looked at were from $3 to $6. And then we looked into those 75th percentile and outlier thresholds. So there is a memorandum that has been submitted to city staff that does contain what the projected revenue would be for each of those scenarios. So 8 scenarios total. The one that was identified as the most feasible and the preferred scenario was a $6 base rate with the cost maximum set at that orange line, that outlier threshold. So not limiting the cost maximum further, and that did produce enough revenue to meet what the financial plan identified as the target. So in this graph on the left side are those financial plan revenue goals per year, and then we've also got what the potential stormwater utility program revenue would be.
If we did all that,
Yes.
doubling and tripling and everything.
Yes.
else.
One
I
other
want
thing
to do.
for my edification and maybe others here and people listening at home, when we talk about vacancies, we're talking about a property without a structure on it. We're
Right.
not talking about a vacant structure
Right.
on a property.
Right.
Yes, you're
Okay.
talking about a property without a structure on it. The way we identified those with using the county parcel database was that they would have $0 building value.
Right.
So if there was a structure on the property, it would give a building value. And then just a note for those non-residential, if they were developed, aka covered with a lot of impervious, those aren't considered vacant because they will be used for something and have been developed, whether or not there's a structure on it.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
And we did, before Carl was on the council, we did
Oh,
go
yeah, I
through
forgot
this
about that.
very,
Oh,
we looked at all the
goodness.
scenarios, remember, and we chose which one we thought was the most reasonable and get us to where we needed to be,
There will be a
And-
test, Carl, after.
you know.
No,
No, it was, I mean, we did, we all kind of
It was
looked through
pretty
and picked which ones we, yeah,
in-depth.
and we all agreed, I think we all kind of, except maybe Katie for that, something different, I don't know. I think we all kind of all agreed on
We
the
were
same thing.
similar,
So
but-
we've seen this before, maybe, except Carl.
to the, Madam Mayor, to your point, the increases here shown are being presented to the council. Just want to be clear to
Yes,
those
that's
watching on
not,
TV.
but it's not a for sure. We have not decided any of those increases, so I'm kind of
Yes.
surprised they're in there, but
Yeah, and to be
That's
clear
okay.
too, the financial plan is, those targets are set up based on those increases. So there is some wiggle room if you decide maybe to move a capital improvement project to a different year. Those numbers in the financial plan would have changed anyways. So also you can see on the stormwater utility program side, even if you didn't increase the rate through year 2 or 2026, you would still be meeting that financial revenue goal.
and that's
and
what, yeah, that's why we decided like it's easier to just, let's do the $6 instead of like we double it and then we make more later, because it made more sense to just kind of not keep raising it on people every year. And
Yes.
so I wish that it actually showed what we intended to do more than what that plan might have suggested, but that's okay. I just don't want anyone to get confused or
No, I
surprised.
completely
by-
understand. And I would
Yeah.
also like to add too, the increases in the rate don't ever have to be like a solid dollar amount. They could
Could
be
be
25
50
cents
cents
or
or-
10
yeah.
cents or 15 cents. It could
Yeah.
be whatever the city
33
council
cents.
decides. So
Yep.
we see that in other communities too, that the annual cost raise, I know the financial plan described tripling it every year, but it could
Yeah,
be like that
okay.
3% every year, completely up to the city council. This is just a measure of whether or not it could be effective to what the financial plan targeted.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes. So as an overall summary, this stormwater utility program would pay to help maintain all of your stormwater infrastructure and potentially replace, repair, and implement new stormwater management as needed for the city. Again, the major points on outlining and establishing the stormwater utility program are that the vacant properties would be excluded, and that you would have a cost maximum cap for those few properties that are significantly high above that outlier threshold. And then I did show again the financial plan potential annual increases here, but again to note, those are decided annually by the city council. They're shown on the slide because they were shown in the financial plan, but that is up to the city's decision every year what they do with the stormwater utility program.
So, question, do you
Yes.
mind going back to that one where you compared our rates to the other?
Cities?
Yes.
So I'm looking at this and then I'm looking at what's in our packet.
Page are you on?
I am on, oh God, I don't have page numbers.
Oh, well,
Kind of
I think I
almost
might
like seventh
know.
to
Is
the
it
end or
one?
something, like we're
Page
close to
92.
the end. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
It says the storm, so commercial industrial, it says 62.85 per acre each quarter. And I'm trying to figure out, oh, so is that the REF
That's-
that we're not actually seeing?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay,
There, depending on how the individual city did it, they may have taken that REF and multiplied it by the base rate. So if you're looking at a particular community and their base rate was, say, the $12, and they're asking, I can't remember the number, you said 62, they might have an REF of like 6 or 7. So the REF ranges here, for instance, were literally less than 1 to 9. And ours are hovering around the 2 to 4 range in the middle there. So you can have substantial multipliers on the base rate depending on the community.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'll chime in. Yes, so as Lily mentioned, that's what happened. So the per acre per quarter, the REF is already multiplied by the base rate there. And then in the billing system, it'll indicate what the acreage is for each property.
Gotcha. And then my other question is it common to have a cost max cap for the non-residential?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's common or uncommon. It's seen across other communities as well. So very dependent on the community and what they would like to do. I've seen communities both with it and without it, but I don't have like a overall statistic for the state of Minnesota or anything like that.
Okay.
And it's sometimes not the information I looked at to get these numbers and the values for the other communities didn't necessarily always come from the ordinance. Sometimes it comes from a fee schedule that wouldn't necessarily show the cost maximum or from direct communication with the city. So sometimes it's difficult for me to know, researching this, whether or not there is a cost maximum for each community.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Lily?
No.
Okay. Thanks for all of the details and the write-up
course.
for us.
Yes.
It's been a while since we talked about it, so it's
It is,
it's pretty
yeah.
fresh. I was like,
I'm
oh
happy to
yeah,
answer any questions.
I know.
And if any questions do come up, you
Okay.
can always reach out. And
No, I think I'm glad we're doing this. I know when we did the analysis, when we were looking at what we were going to set for our budget and tax increases, that we were able to say that we were able to reduce taxes per resident, so that then this fee is kind of covering what that reduction was, if that makes any sense. But then it's also going across the other entities that aren't getting paying property taxes, like the churches and the prison and all of that. So it's much more equitable, even though it's going to feel like it's an extra fee for the residents, but it's not, is what I'm trying to say, because we were able to reduce the actual property tax by this similar amount, the $6 per quarter, $24.
I think that point is something that could help me a little bit to get up to speed. I paid attention when I was a young aspiring city council member a little bit, so I know that this is something that can ease a burden on a existing property tax payer because of the fees on those that don't pay property taxes.
Exactly.
Is there something quantifiable I can share with my neighbors as we?
Yeah, Matt, you're going to be on the spot here.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the council, we did do a calculation showing that there is a certain point, I believe about 96% of the properties would see some actually property tax relief, we'll call it, based on.
It was just a few dollars,
this
like it
fee.
wasn't like huge.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. And actually it was inverse. The people with higher property taxes saw bigger savings than the people with lower property taxes. So yeah, if you desire something, I can, I think I created a spreadsheet. It's a really, really long one, but
We're actually
Well,
writing
I
a
think
newsletter article for the next newsletter coming out too. It's in Sarah's list, so maybe we could just be more
I think
detailed
an
in that.
explanation like what you have given, a brief synopsis, I think people might get lost with the spreadsheet.
Right, and I
That's
think
my
it's going to
thought.
be summarized.
yeah, Madam Mayor,
And
I
we did
believe
it.
it's already been in the newsletter.
We did it in the newsletter,
Oh.
and I think I just looked it up to see what she had in the plans for the next one, and it did say new stormwater utility. So I assume she's going to be writing about it again.
Yeah, it'll
'Cause
probably
it's
just be
also-
a short update, Madam Mayor.
And maybe we
based
need to
on it.
give a little more detail, so I'm saying, and I know there will be people who are gonna be, oh yeah, thanks for sticking around, John. I think, do you have any opposition to this if we're
No,
gonna vote?
no.
Okay, all right, good, sounds good. people, there will be some properties that are going to see a bill that have not had a bill in the past because they don't pay utilities, right? So that will be, I just want to make sure they're all well aware of this happening. So, okay, do we want to make a motion, or do you have more questions, Carl?
No, thank you.
Help? Okay.
Okay, I move to approve the amendment to Chapter 58, Utilities of Bayport City Code of Ordinance as presented and summarized for publication.
Thanks, Katie.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Carl. And a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bliss,
Aye.
Councilmember Hill,
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. All right, thank you, that passes. And now you're free to go, Lily, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, so now we're gonna consider an amendment to Appendix D, the fee schedule of the Bayport City Code of Ordinances and summary for publication. Matt's gonna present this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Normally, on a yearly basis, we try to do it once a year. We do update the fee schedule that is located in our zoning or our city ordinance. This year, I believe we've already done one of these updates, but had to do another one because there's a few additions, mostly related to cannabis charges, registration charges, renewal and initial registration, and stormwater, the stormwater utilities that we just passed. We did add in a couple of other ones. The building department, or our building inspector, asked us to make some changes to building permit, just minor changes at this point, mostly reducing some of the permits that we have related to maintenance, and not making it so cumbersome to have so many. And then one additional burial addition, an increase to one, and then elimination of another. I don't know if you have questions on them specifically. I wasn't going to run through them all individually. Did want to mention that the cannabis ones are, I don't believe, are at the max that you can charge, but they're similar to what other cities are charging.
Okay. I have a question about under the building section. Why does it say permit maintenance? What does that even mean?
So it's a permit for like general maintenance. So if you're replacing a window, replacing a door, doing a garage door, it's replacement of those things. So instead of having, we used to have permits for 1 to 3 windows was one cost, and then 4 and above was another cost. And then now it just got all incorporated into one general permit for those items.
And so there are other categories under building, it's just,
Yeah,
we need
just-
that. Okay, it just seemed weird.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's a significant list of other ones under
Okay,
building,
gotcha.
yes. We just put the ones that have changed on this list.
So we did have a fee, we were supposed to like get a permit for replacing like a storm door.
Storm door, probably not.
Okay, it
No.
wasn't clear to me, so
No.
I don't know how that works, but,
No, just an exterior door, which would be your permanent door, right? Not necessarily storm door. No permit needed for a storm door.
okay. Good, because I didn't get a permit and I've done that, so I had no idea. All right,
Is that per window and door or per project?
it is kind of confusing, isn't it?
I don't put, no, that is not per window anymore. That is just, so if you're not changing the window size of any of your windows, that's just one general amount now.
I feel like I maybe should have S's in parentheses after each word or something.
That's fine. We can make that change.
Windows, doors, or garage doors.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because otherwise it does sound like it's per. Do you think that would fix it? I don't know. Okay. That's all I had.
And you're taking away the winter burial one, because do you even do the same price?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of council. We're taking away the winter burial mostly because the person who digs the full casket burials charges the same price winter or summer at this point. So that's why we removed the extra for the winter burial.
Okay. Anyone ready to make a motion?
I move to approve the amendment of Appendix D fee sheet of the Bayport City Code of Ordinance as presented, and summary for publication.
Do we have to make note of the
Yeah,
minor
make notes
change?
of the changes with the S in parentheses.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Katie and Carl. Roll call.
Councilmember Bliss.
Aye.
Councilmember Hill.
Aye.
Mayor Hansen.
Aye. Feels so very empty in
Yeah.
here, doesn't it? Okay, so we're gonna do council liaison reports. Katie, do you wanna start?
Yeah, my first one I went to was BCAL. Farmer market people are meeting. They are gonna do the design a shirt contest for, the bank's gonna handle it. They're gonna do a kid one and a adult one, and then hopefully sell those shirts at Derby Days.
And they're Derby Days themed shirts.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
And then Ice Cream Social is going off with a hit. Churches are, I think all 3 churches are involved. They're gonna do a food drive. Some of the members of the churches will help scoop along with hopefully city council members. So if hopefully everyone's still up for it, I think they'll send like a little sign up sheet, half hour only to scoop out some ice cream. They are looking for the city to donate some ice cream for the Ice Cream Social.
Really?
So yeah, because Mabel's donates some and the rest BCAL buys, but they're wondering if maybe the city could pay for that part. Jill will also be doing the music down there. And that's what I have for
Not
you.
herself, but she'll
Not
hire
herself,
it out.
hire
Yeah.
it out. Yeah, I think it's
She's not that talented.
that Sam guy she had at maybe Derby Days she was talking to again,
Oh,
who was during the duck races. She had somebody come down, I think. And then I
I don't
also
remember she had circus people one year. I can't
maybe
remember.
that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
then.
maybe that circus was 2 years ago. Or was that last year? I don't remember.
I don't know.
Okay.
I
Great.
also went to, I'm a part of the board for the Anderson Parent Group, and they had a couple of questions that I've talked to Matt already about for their Diggy Dash, what's up at Barker's Alps, and their field day at the end of the school to see if maybe we had to think about moving it to a different park, but it seems like the park, the area that we're at will not be disturbed from the parking lot getting fixed up. So we should still be able to have it there. And I relayed that to them and they're excited because
Good.
then you got to change all the paperwork saying where it is.
Yeah, because they just walk from the
Yeah,
school,
we just walk
so you
from the
don't need
school, yeah.
parking or anything
Yeah.
anyways. So.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just parents that come in there. There's enough parking on the street for them.
Okay.
So, and then I also went to Planning Commission meeting on the 8th, that the final approval for the school that we approved as well. That there was a couple people that came up about the prairie, which we are still working with the U of M on the right plants and everything to go. So I think that's gonna be fine. And then the park getting taken over, which I'm hoping people know that that's, when we're here, we're not gonna let that happen, when I'm here. And then the sidewalk as well. So those were the main concerns. And then I also did hiring or interviews for Planning Commission. So we had 2 interviews and we
Oh,
hired the dean guy.
Yeah,
So,
great.
yeah, I sat in on those too.
Wonderful. Looking forward to meeting him
Yeah.
sometime.
He's gonna be a good fit. He
Yeah.
has
He
a lot
seems
of city background.
Good qualifications.
So, yeah.
Yeah, excited. Well, nice job. You were busy.
I was busy this month.
Yeah. Awesome, Carl.
Last weekend, spent 2 days with a bunch, probably 300 city council members and mayors from
Yeah.
across the street. So League of Minnesota had their newly elected official leader institute. They do one for more experienced people like you two. But it was just, it's valuable to learn how cities work and how to do the job we do, but super valuable just to meet others who are doing this in similar sized towns or bigger towns or much, much smaller towns even. And love getting together with council members from some of our neighboring communities and getting to know some of them. That's been probably the most valuable part of getting started, is meeting some of our neighboring elected officials.
Wonderful.
Attended my first meeting of the Lake Elmo Airport Citizens Advisory Commission. It's a commission made up of 50% representatives from cities and townships around the area and 50% airport users. Just a couple of updates worth mentioning there. I guess the Lake Elmo Aero is installing a new fueling system with the leak detection system, which I think our grandkids will thank us for somewhere down the line.
Good.
And then, of course, for anybody who's aspiring to be a pilot, the EAA Chapter 54 is doing their Young Eagles youth flights again in May, which is always worth getting a kid up in an airplane.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then the April meeting, I think, is the last of my pre-election conflicts, so I just wanted to, I'll miss the next meeting.
Understood. Thank you, Carl. Okay. In March, I had a couple different meetings with Simon on that SPAR grant, the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, for the walkability study, which is part of in his write-up, and we're waiting to hear if we got the extra National Association funding from them. I'm not sure what the date is that we'll hear back, but it seemed pretty positive, so we'll let you know how that goes. And thank you, Simon, for working on that with us. And I met with Jill because I'm now a new library board liaison, and so she taught me a little bit about how the library board works and my role. So we had a separate meeting, and then I also went to the actual library board meeting. And her summary in our packets is usually kind of tells us most of what you need to know, because she pretty much takes what we did there and puts it into our letter. But it's exciting how that book club that some random resident, I believe, started the book club in conjunction with the library, and it's growing. They had to move out of the little room into the big room. She has lots of plans for spring break, so families should be looking online on the calendar for all the activities that are gonna happen. And she also hosted Representative Josiah Hill and our new County Commissioner Bethany Cox at the library, so they could learn a little bit about why our library is so important to our community. And we have 2 new services, Canopy video streaming, and you can also get the New York Times All Access subscription. All you need is a library card. So go on and check that out. I went to Regional Council of Mayors meeting on February 10th, and also the Fire Relief Association on that same day. Regional Council of Mayors was just we had some futurists there. It was really interesting, just kind of looking ahead and what we need to be thinking about. So I was, like you said, getting together with peers is always very helpful. Fire Relief nothing too exciting happening at Fire Relief. I did go to a couple of the Burr Crawl meetings with the local businesses just to help them with their new event and make sure they were, on track. And because I started the summer bar crawl through BCAL when I was on that, so I thought it could help with that a little bit. Leadership in the Valley had their education day, so that was what we did on the second Thursday of the month, and we went to Century College and we went to Stillwater Area High School, and we each got assigned a different elementary school or different type of school in the area to go come back and report on. So it was really interesting to learn about all the different options that our community has for education. Also met with Clayton Duncombe from Sustainable Stillwater. He asked to meet about the work that they're doing with Met Council to install, they're hoping to get solar panels at the wastewater treatment plant. And so wanted to see how we as a community would feel about that. And I thought we would probably feel pretty good about that. So so if we need, he was just looking for support and maybe might be sending us something where we would say a letter of support or some proclamation or something, I'm not sure. And just kind of talked about other ways that their group could maybe connect with our community, and because they don't want to be known as just sustainable, just Stillwater, they want it to affect the entire valley. So working on that. Matt and I had the meeting with the partners for the fire advisory group, and that was on the 19th, and I think everything went really well. We're all kind of on board with doing some more meetings that we're supposed to be doing, so we can stay in touch and kind of keep things rolling so that we can renew or create a new contract probably eventually with some different criteria in it, but we'll all have to. It was interesting. Then we also met with the newly elected Baytown chair and vice chair and went over a little bit about our fire advisory team and how we're Matt said it'll probably take us a couple of years before we kind of come to a conclusion about it. And she said, "Are you kidding? Let's just lock ourselves in a room and figure this out." You know, so it was very interesting. Yeah, so it was good. We got to get to know them, Nicole Dahl, and who's actually related to John. It's her brother-in-law, and she's the chair now of the Baytown board. And CJ Randazzo, who we've met through Rick Fedorowski when he comes to do those. So he's the vice chair. So they had just some questions about, our relationship between the city and the townships and things that we have in common, the annexation that's going on, and just able to kind of get up to speed with them and seeing how we already work together well and what we can do to partner on things again in the future. So they're doing a great job getting everything kind of digging in and learning more there. I went to it was called the Greater MSP Partnership. This was through the Regional Council of Mayors. Their president came and spoke to us, and they their mission is, I'll read it, to accelerate regional competitiveness and inclusive economic growth. So it's like kind of like a chamber, but more about economic growth instead of like the actual businesses. And so they had an event that they invited the mayors to, and I invited our new commissioner, Bethany Cox, to, because Washington County contributes $50,000 a year to this partnership. And then their goal is to bring economic development. If someone wants a new business and they're not thinking about Minnesota or the greater MSP, their job to kind of go out there and try to get those people. So we just wanted to know, what are they doing for Washington County? And I'm still not sure that it's clear, but I'm going to keep meeting with people to understand that. Anderson Corporation is also contributes to them, and Excel. So I thought kind of interesting that they all feel like it's a valuable thing. So I'm wondering what they're actually doing for us, and if there's more we could have done. And I met with Mary Ritchie. She's with the Stillwater Community Foundation to continue my pursuit of the best way to come up with an endowment, a way that people could give endowments to the city if they want. And I think I'm finally getting close to that. So. And then I also had a meeting with Eliza, Klebeck she's the VP of Communications and Community from Anderson Corporation. And I just think it's good for us to stay connected and kind of update each other on what's happening with them and what's happening with us. So just kind of keeping those lines of communication open. So we just had coffee and told her about what's going on with our school and the annexations and things like that. And she's going to try to hook us up she's going to plan a tour, because I haven't been there for a while, and maybe meet the CEO, and then I will invite you guys when we get that scheduled. So that was my month of February, I guess. So now we're on to staff and city administrator reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fire Chief Eisinger.
Madam Mayor, council members, for February, the call volume was 78 compared to 78 in 2024. I couldn't believe it when I did the report this morning. I know I had an error in the one I made.
Oh, because it says 100 and okay.
So, but our year-to-date volume is 205 compared to 178 for last year. Monthly drills are fire behavior, fire officer, right to know, hazmat, which, by the way, we did have 2 hazmats the last 2 days. One down here at the holiday station, and then a semi that turned over today. So going through that. We had Washington County hazmat training. Some of us attended. Our CIRRUS training for active shooter in Woodbury we attended. Fire advisory board, as the mayor mentioned. Our fire officer class continues. We have one this Wednesday and one next Wednesday. Our anniversaries are Aaron Pritchard with 15 years, Ray Valley with 15 years, Kyle Peltier with 6 years. Upcoming events, some more serious training, the township annual meetings, and the fire officer class. With that, I stand for questions.
So the actual call volume for February was 78.
78, yep.
And it was 78 last year. Okay, so both of those numbers were wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about
That's okay.
I went and updated because Sarah asked for it. Well, I had placeholders and I forgot to update the numbers.
That's okay, it happens. All right, thank you for clarifying that. Thanks for coming.
Police Chief Jackson.
Madam Mayor, council members, somewhat of a couple of announcements. Officer Lepowski did a meet and greet at the bar crawl. She stopped by there for a little bit, said hi to a couple of folks. Officer Nick Teskey is hit his 5-year full-time anniversary with us, so thank him for his service if you should run into him. Officer Lepowski also did a couple of tours for 3 kindergarten classes of our police department this past week. And we did sign on to the Baycal Ice Cream Social June 4th. We're going to have a present down there for that.
Okay.
And then the big announcement is Safety Camp, July 14th and 15th. We did change the date this year just to be a little bit easier on staff members. It's a lot when we do it combined with Night to Unite, which is August 5th this year. So we're kind of starting the planning process with that, but hopefully with the date change, that'll make it a little bit nicer for staff. So I will stand for any questions.
So you guys moved it to the night of city council?
Yes. That way I only have a long day, the rest of the staff.
Yeah, like it's not helping you, Jay. Okay. All right, thank you. Any
Questions? Thank you.
Public Works Director Worth.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, for the month of February, snow plowing and cold temperatures and painting was the name of the game at our public works shop. Couple of things that are kind of exciting here for the future. The 3M PFAS Settlement Priority 2 grant program was released, and the city intends to submit a letter of intent for a project. There's $20 million available for that has been allocated to supporting projects that restore aquatic resources, wildlife habitats, and outdoor recreational opportunities in affected areas. We are looking at the LWLP property, which is Land Water Legacy Program along the river. Potentially looking at adding a park and a boat landing. So it's very exciting. We'll be putting that letter together and submitting that by April 4th. The other thing was the SPAR Communities application update. That is SPAR, as Mayor Hansen indicated, is the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors. They have a grant that they have money available for communities in order to essentially make the neighborhoods more saleable to realtors, and we decided to take advantage of that by trying to do a walkability study, and we reached out to the contractor who takes care of fixing our sidewalks by smoothing out the cracks, and it's called Safe Step LLC. They had never done one of these walkability studies before, but they are very confident that they're able to do something since it's kind of a niche that they're in already. We have talked through that with them. It sounds like a really fun project for the city for the Safe Step, and SPAR seemed on board with it. They did seem positive, and in the sense that we're hopefully going to get that grant almost in the amount of $15,000. So walkability is a big buzzword these days, and really aiming to just get an idea of what our walking trails and pedestrian sidewalks look like, and if there are any gaps in that system that we can fill to make Bayport more walkable. That's the aim of that project. So other than that, with that, I stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Simon. Okay, does anyone have any, what? Oh, yeah, you, I forgot about you. Go ahead, Matt.
I get to fill in for two people. Sarah's
Sarah
out
and-
sick
yeah,
tonight,
okay.
unfortunately.
I was like, oh, we're done.
She did have on her report communications. The new website is progressing. We're getting a fair amount of content on there. Looking at potentially online payments for a number of different items. Also finish up tonight the workshop for 2025 city goals and priorities. The council went through and identified areas where they want to prioritize on the goals and made suggestions for other ones. As far as the city administrator report, obviously tonight we finished up the elementary school with final plat. Intent there is, I believe they are fencing off the area tomorrow of the parking lot area and the kind of the perimeter that goes between the two properties essentially. So they will not start, just a heads up, they will not start tearing apart the our parking lot tomorrow. So you will still be able to park there in the short term, and there will be an opening in the fence to use like the pavilion and different stuff. But when construction comes, they wanted to get the fence in place so they could start moving immediately on construction or removals actually, which will be coming probably in the next week or two. So. So I thought there was going to be a question on there.
I was waiting for the right time. I think that's something where, as this stuff, as fences go up, as parking lots get ripped up, I don't think we can communicate too much.
Yeah.
It'll be stark here for a little bit while construction gets started, and it'll take a little getting used to. But
yep, and the intent would be to probably here after final plat got passed. If Sarah's in tomorrow, I'll have her do an email blast just on the short-term schedule that we know. We have been in contact with the both the VAA, St. Croix Valley Athletic Authority, and the St. Croix Prep regarding ball field use. And then obviously Anderson parent group who has been talking about using the field. But yes, there's been, up until the schedule that came out last week, we haven't had too much of a schedule that we knew about. So the mayor already mentioned that fire advisory meeting. I believe that went well, and hopefully we'll be moving forward with getting another negotiation going. I already talked about pre-construction planning for the elementary school. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Okay. Now we're really done. Unless someone has an announcement. Okay. Anyone?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're done. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Quiet meeting.